Dude, everybody loves my mama jokes. Come on.
Like I was saying, 46 ICU beds or whatever for COVID patients in a country of 2 million. 46. And after when they get 47, they are overloaded, and they've got 40 right now. 40 filled. So it's like they've got no choice but to lock it down. In the economy, I am telling you, we are in for some interesting years. I mean, this shit's going to be felt for years.
So do they have so few beds? Like this. Do they have so few beds? I wonder, and I don't expect you to know the answer to this, but do people stay in country to get that kind of care, or maybe do they push out somewhere else?
Yeah, they have to. Nobody else is going to take them unless you're super rich. If you're super rich, you could probably get out of the country.
Wait a minute, I thought they had socialized medicine, right? And didn't everybody get coverage?
Dude, this is the fucking lesson, man. This is the lesson that everyone's learning right now. Oh, there's socialized medicine. So great, dude. I think a lot of people here have been living in a dream world, and I don't know, man. It's
socialized medicine is great when you have like the common cold, right? And you're just getting a Z-Pack and you just run down the street and I'm picking this up and that's great. When like I need a liver transplant or some shit like that, well, that's when it ain't so good.
Cancer treatment here is pretty good. If you pick up early, if you're diagnosed early with cancer, we know a cancer survivor here, and she had it pretty bad, and it got right over it, man. So I mean, if it's caught early and you're able to slip in there into treatment, like I'm like talking real early, where you don't need treatment for like 4 or 5 months,
right?
They got pretty good care. But this situation, man,
if you don't need health care, it's great.
They're up against a rock and a hard place right now, where they're going to have to start making some difficult decisions, because I am telling you, this economy is not good. They keep taking out stimulus packages from the EU, and that shit's all going to come due. Yep. I mean, and their economy was doing okay, growing, GDP was growing, anywhere from 3 to 7%. And that ain't enough to pay back 5 stimulus loans with that kind of growth.
And you guys are on the euro, right?
Yeah.
See, and this goes all the way back, right? Yeah, it's just like socialism, because motherfuckers that talk about socialism have never seen socialism. But it's like the euro. Everybody wanted to go in the euro. A couple countries didn't, and there's a reason. This is one of the reasons. Because when you can't isolate that, dude, it's going to be bad all the way around, and that shit spreads fast.
I'm giving this till January 2021, and if they're still playing around with these second and third waves and shutting down the economy, my prediction is within 5 years, if you keep track of this place, no one does, there's going to be like riots and shit in about 5 years, because they're going to have to do austerity measures. And if there's one thing these people don't know about right now, it's austerity. And once they start cutting pensions and shit like that, man, people are going to freaking flip. But we've been saying this for months, man, and we can save it for the recording. But I am seriously starting to be really concerned with public mental health in the Western world right now. Because, man, I mean, you guys seem to be doing all right. Everything seems to be kind of on an even keel there. But, man, people can't keep doing this.
Not really.
People can't keep doing this. People are going to go fucking nuts over here. I'm telling you. And when I say nuts,
They just published an article a couple of days ago talking about, I forget who did it. It was one of the big major outlets, conservative outlet, and they were talking about the mental health that they're already seeing, and how many people now, they're talking about, psychiatric visits are up, the amount of narcotic prescriptions are up, for that type of treatment. So it's, it's kind of funny, because my kids just got back from Maryland, and so my daughter got in the truck. I asked her, I was like, hey, how's the trip? She's like, Dad, it was weird. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, we're out at a restaurant, and it's like people are lifting their masks to take a sip of water and putting the mask back down. And, I was trying to show her the difference. Like, hey, granted, you've got Hogan out there who's supposed to be a Republican, but he's probably right in line with Mitt Romney. But it's like, hey, now you're starting to see the difference between your blue and your red states, where people out here are pretty much like, F it. But you go back east, she's like, and these are her friends, right? So the lowest risk population there is, these are her college age friends. So these are 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds scared to leave their house. Hey, we were going to get a big group together, but we didn't do that because of COVID. And it's like, so you do understand that by one person coming and going back to the group, that kind of the same thing, right? But I mean, it's not even, you look at mental health as an illness, which is, I think, what you're referring to. That's going to be huge. But just when you look at the whole paradigm shift on the thought process and risk aversion and this and that with the youth, I mean, dude, you won't see that for decades. I mean, you know, that's well,
maybe STD rates will go down. The STD rates will go down.
So the birth rate,
you know,
or pregnancies,
dude. I'm legitimately concerned. I won't say worried, but it's like you're reading the tea leaves right now, and like you said, it may not be like illness per se, but people, for lack of a better word, just stir crazy, man. And you know, people in Europe, man. I know what you think, Roger, but these people, when they go crazy, they go all out.
They're pussies,
and they are. Till they go crazy. You've
got some blips in there. God. You got some of the, you know, the French period and this and that. People go off their rocker. But yeah, I mean, it's even, I think even Kurt was saying it before, talking about the Revolutionary War. I mean, even here, you know, it's that old saying from The Rock, you know, which I hate to use his name. Matter of fact, I might edit that shit out. But anyway, it's the, you know, don't sing it, bring it. Everybody likes to talk a big game. It's like the 3%ers and all the other groups out there and the Boogaloo and, you know, which Josh has been all over. It's there's a lot of fucking talk, but when it comes down to it, how many actually take action? And not saying that you should or shouldn't or whatever, but there's obviously a difference, right, between talking a big game and then bringing it.
It doesn't take many, though, as we all know.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Man, oh man. Yeah. We'll see, dude. I'm woefully underprepared for tonight. So
it's about the norm. I was actually going to do this on my back porch smoking a cigar, but it's about 3 degrees too warm. So is that ACB's notepad? There you go.
Yeah.
Luke and ACB all over it. All over it. All right. Give me a second. We'll do this thing.
What are we doing?
We're doing a show. You see the videos? You see the videos of the dog, my dog that I sent you?
Yeah, my wife loves that dog.
He's such a piece of shit.
My wife loves
and he didn't even open his eyes. Like my little dog, she knows the fucking move, right? Because she's like, I may get squashed. I won't be here tomorrow if I get stepped on. The big dog, he knows you're walking around. It's like there ain't no getting around that shit.
So what's this tweet, Roger? Is really you're getting a lot of love off this one.
No, I was following Josh's Josh's playbook there, where I happened to be on it. And I saw what's her face posted. I forget which one it was, but you know, she's got like 20 million followers. And she posted, I was like, holy shit, there's only 2 comments. I got in on that shit quick. I need to have like a list of like really good comebacks or really good retorts. That way I can have them ready. So when I see something like that, I just like, oh, this one, plug it in there and get like 5,000, you know, retweets and whatever. Am I actually, my Twitter audience is actually growing. Oh, look at that shit.
But you got 3 followers 6. Now?
Just as many as Culper's Canteen Cup.
Sweet.
Dude, I got
6 followers?
344 likes. Wow, that's crazy. I don't even have that many friends on Facebook. Little nuts.
Nope. For sure. Yeah, I'm woefully underprepared too, because I thought we were doing this weekend.
Let's just do it live. You know, I did say Saturday, but that was for like this last Saturday.
It's fine.
No. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. What was that?
I said Saturday, but for the last Saturday, not this coming up one. And I said that when I was
Why would you say Saturday
too.
For the last Saturday? It's already passed.
Because I said it before last Saturday.
So I've already had several people hit me up. I've already had several people hit me up and say, so yeah, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Luke was drinking during the last podcast because I think he got drunk towards the end. I was like, yeah, there were about 15 minutes there that.
And yet no one said that about Josh. That one time he got so wasted, so plastered. It's like he's just angry.
I hope that next time, I hope Luke drinks Boulay and gets drunk. That way he can go through the I love you guys like on air, you know, on YouTube.
Right.
I love you guys, man. I go to war with you guys.
Man. I never said that.
Oh, man.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Culper's Canteen Cup. This is episode 37, where, hey, fact, if Steve Sculley says he didn't send it, you can take it to the bank, period. Anyone who questions him or makes accusations is a damn liar. Oh no, I'm sorry. That was Joe Lockhart from CNN. So kind of funny whenever anybody makes a statement like that's that definitive is like, yeah, you know what? You might want to walk that back. But anyway, before we get into all that, before we get into it, because I know we've all got a lot on our minds, a lot to say. It's been a busy week. Just, real quick shout out to all of our listeners out there. A big shout out to Carlton Zeus. Check them out on Apple Music, www.carltonzeus.com. Thanks for his intro music. And last but not least, longtime listener. He's been around with us since the beginning. So all of 6 months now. So Will, he listens to our episodes pretty regularly, and during your guys' whole fat body thing where somebody's losing some weight somewhere or whatever, he waged a bottle of liquor, or he was going to present a bottle of liquor or whiskey to whoever won. So Luke was the winner. So I have the bottle right here. So it's pretty good. It's ancient age. It's it's 10 star. It used to say 10 year. They actually changed it to 10 star. It's 10 star. It is distilled by Buffalo Trace. So there's a lot of historic value. It does have a screw top. Don't let that fool you. They put the screw top on there to make it easier for shipping because corks pop. So they do the screw top.
That looks really good.
Oh, dude, it's the best bottle you ever have. So I'm going to, it's 1 liter. It's 1 liter. So I'm going to go ahead and dip pouch this to you. I would insure it, but there's really, come on now. There's really no need to insure any ancient age. But thanks to Will for this bottle. They've been distilling since 1869. Highly sought after. I can tell you out here in Arizona, you don't see this bottle. You actually see it by the half gallon in a plastic jug. But I'll get that out to you. I'll get that out to you as soon as I can, Luke. While I send that to you, I'll probably sip on some scotch that I've got in there. I got this 18-year-old scotch that I found that's like green light or something like that, but I'll probably go ahead and sip on that just so I can, match what you'll be drinking here with the ancient age. So back to the show. So it's been a busy week, and we sit here for all you canteeners out there. We always kick around on well, it depends. If Josh is at work, we'll be on Messenger. And then once Josh gets off work, we have to go on Hangouts because he can't get Hangouts at work. So anyway, on one of the two platforms, we sit here and we text back and forth like, hey, what are we going to talk about this week? And we come up with these big ideas. And this week, we were talking about term limits, which I think we'll get to, talking about Section 230, we'll get to. You obviously got Amy Coney Barrett in the news. But first, I want to kick it off with Steve Sculley. So, I kind of made that joke starting at the very beginning. So Steve Sculley, who was supposed to be the moderator for the debate that didn't happen, and as they start digging into the background, again, I've said this before, I think it's just as much the GOP's fault because somebody should be vetting these folks, right? Somebody should be doing some due diligence. Like, hey, let's not have 4 Democrats moderate every single debate. I know you picked Fox News, but you had Chris Wallace, so you just picked a 20-year lifetime Democrat. But anyway, you go back to Steve Sculley and they start pulling up some of his old tweets, and he's basically a Trump hater, which is fine. You can be a Trump hater, but maybe that's not the guy or gal that I picked to moderate a debate. And then when they start to publicize a couple of these tweets, he comes out and says, oh, and I never actually heard him say this. This was kind of reported through the media, and maybe you guys can break that down for me. Maybe you saw it from him or a tweet or whatever. But from what I saw from the media, he was saying it wasn't him. He was hacked, which of course would have meant he was hacked twice within like a 4-year time span, which is crazy. And C-SPAN came out to defend it, as opposed to saying, hey, we're going to take a look at this, just like everything else, right? Just like everything else we talk about, as opposed to they take a definitive stance. And I get standing by your employee. I understand that. But I also understand tweeting, drunk podcasting. Both of these guys know about drunk podcasting. Got to do some major edits on that. The good thing is, well, hopefully Riverside doesn't keep any of that stuff, because if we ever hit it big, we're probably going to see a couple of those things come out where some edits were made and like, hey, look at this. This comes out. But anyway. So, they come out and they take a definitive stance. You got all these people that are coming up to his defense, but I never once saw him or heard him come out. It's like, hey, look, man, because we've all been through the training, especially with something that if I didn't do it, I'm telling everybody, fuck the world. I didn't do this. This ain't my shit. I was hacked. I've never had this conversation. Go eat a dick. Right. That's what's coming from me. So he never says any of that. And then all of a sudden, he's suspended by C-SPAN. And, apparently he wasn't hacked, and he actually came out and made the statement. So, Josh, what are your thoughts on it, man? Steve Sculley suspended indefinitely. At first, I thought, it's like I didn't want to get into much of the black helicopter game because, we all get into it, and it's the, there are conspiracies, and we talked about the presidential debate commission before a little bit, but is it relevant? Does it still need to be around? Thoughts on Steve Sculley?
Well, my thoughts on Steve Sculley are the same thoughts I had right after I got home and ran upstairs to get rid of lunch. Those are my thoughts on Steve Sculley as him as a person. As far as the debate commission goes, I don't know that we need a debate commission. I think that you force both candidates. There's 2 moderators per debate, and each candidate gets to pick a moderator, right? And granted, you can't pick somebody who's incredibly far right or incredibly far left, but you have to pick somebody who has a reputation for calling balls and strikes, right? Regardless of who the person are. There's 2 people that come straight to my mind, and some of you people are going to lose your shit, but I'll tell you right now, you want Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson, because if anybody out there who listens to them, they have been very critical of Trump, right? But the one thing I will give Ben Shapiro and Tucker, and I don't agree with every 100% of things they say, I agree with a lot of it, but not everything, is that they call balls and strikes pretty fair. Right. When Trump was doing bad things, Ben Shapiro would always start off his show. He's like, bad Trump. Right. Like he's a child. And so, but when Trump did something that was good, he would be like, good Trump. Hey, you know what? I approve of that. It was really good. And here's why. But he was not afraid to offend a lot of his listeners by saying, I don't agree with this. He's effing it up. Right. And Tucker Carlson was the same way. And he's still the same way to this day. Good Trump, bad Trump. And so I don't know of anybody on the left. I don't know of an MSNBC, a CNN personality. I don't know of anybody over there that has been fair on calling balls and strikes, for that side. But you get rid of the debate commission and you make both campaign, you make them agree on moderators. Whoever, and I agree with you, whoever was on Trump's campaign, whoever vetted these moderators and said, yeah, we're good with that. You're absolutely insane. Like Trump said at the very beginning, like, this is the worst deal. This is one of the worst deals in history. This is the worst deal ever. You pick Chris Wallace, Steve Sculley, and oh, by the way, right after Steve Sculley, quote unquote, got hacked, and did he lie to the FBI? I wonder if he gave a statement to the FBI. I'd be curious to know that, because if he told the FBI that he was hacked, knowing that he was lying at the time he told them that, I'm pretty sure that's a crime. At least that's what they said in the case of Mike Flynn. I don't know. Different podcast. But real quick, it's Throwback Thursday. The Mike Flynn, One Flynn Over the Cuckoo's Nest is back out there. So if you haven't heard it, go ahead and go back and take a listen for us. So, and then you have, I forget who the third moderator was. She deleted her Twitter account right after Steve Sculley got hacked. Right? She just up and deleted hers. Well, if you're above par, if you are above board, pure as the driven snow, why would you delete your Twitter account? You're a moderator for a presidential debate. This is your time. Like, you are, like, you have arrived. Why would you delete your Twitter account unless you, I don't know, maybe you have something
and if you truly believe in your cause, right? If you truly believe, like, all three of us obviously lean right, but we talk about a lot of the policies of the Trump administration. And if you truly believe in your cause, like you just said, you should be eager to get on stage. Like, all right, I know my policies are right. I know my stances are right. Before I kick it to Luke real quick. So here was the statement from Steve Sculley that came out, a couple minutes ago, hour ago, whatever. For several weeks, I was subjected to relentless criticism on social media and in conservative news outlets regarding my role as moderator for the second presidential debate, including attacks aimed directly at my family. This culminated on Thursday, October 8th, when I heard President Trump go on national television twice and falsely attack me by name. Out of frustration, I sent a brief tweet addressed to Anthony Scaramucci. The next morning, when I saw that this tweet had created a new controversy, I falsely claimed that my Twitter account had been hacked. So it's not his fault, right? It's Trump's fault. Now he goes in, he says, these were both errors in judgment for which I am totally responsible. I apologize or whatever. But that is prefaced by, I say it, I'm totally responsible for this. But no, it's because of Trump. Trump is the reason why I lied. Not the reason why I sent the tweet. So I can see that, right? I can see I sent the tweet because Trump got up there and lied. He and I'm not saying he did or didn't because I don't remember the statement that he made, but Trump got up there and said 2 or 3 things about me and they were inaccurate. Boom. I sent out this tweet, whatever. That is fine, but don't sit here and blame the lying on Trump. That's why I lied about my tweets. Luke?
Yeah, Sculley and all that stuff, man. I don't think it was actually a bad move for Trump to back out of that debate for multiple reasons. But something Josh said about who scheduled the debates. I wonder if that, because they probably didn't do this last minute. It's probably been scheduled for a while. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons that his former campaign manager, Brad Parscale, was shown the door and then had his little mental breakdown. I don't know. That guy had a few screw ups along the way.
Good point.
Yeah, I'm with you, Josh. I think that debate, I think that we're seeing a little bit of a generational shift here with respect to debates and all that stuff. I think that, these formats, like we said before, these formats just aren't working. I don't quite remember what I said on the podcast where Roger and I talked about the first debate. Kind of blanked out toward the end there. But, I really think that, first of all, Josh, I think you're right. There needs to be a different type of agreed upon format. I think that the way of the future is going to be something like, Joe Rogan throwing out there, hey, come on my show and let's debate, what people actually freaking care about, man. Because if you look at the questions, from the Chris Wallace debate, I just don't, I think that maybe a quarter of those questions, the voters like Joe and Jane Sixpack out there on the left and the right actually care about. There was so much stuff that just wasn't covered. And the format was absolutely garbage. It was trash. What's wrong with like Lincoln Douglas? Take 2 issues, do a modified, shortened Lincoln Douglas type debate. It was good enough for Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Why can't it be good enough now? And one of the reasons it isn't good enough now, I'll answer my own question, is because people's attention spans are just too short, and we're stuck in this old debate format where attention spans are short, and it's just a recipe for disaster. And you get what you had in the first debate. It's not going to work. And plus, these are older guys. I think with the younger generation, you get, off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head. AOC. Let's just say AOC and Crenshaw are gonna run against each other. They're going to have a debate. I think those two in that generation are going to be a lot more comfortable with the Joe Rogan type format, Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, stuff like that. I think that there will be a change. This just isn't working. And whether there's another debate or not, I don't know. I doubt it. But, the problem with Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro is that they're pundits and they're not seen as news people by journalists. And don't get me started about the state of journalism and the media, but where someone like Chris Wallace and Sculley and all these other people, Dan Rather posted something that absolutely made no sense today. And this guy is probably one of the most respected journalists out there. Edward R. Murrow, like our buddy last week said, Kurt Schlichter said, where are those guys? And they're respected media people, but they're snakes, man. And they know how the business goes. They're absolutely not. They're as much of a pundit or more so than Tucker Carlson or Ben Shapiro, because at least you know what those two think. And I'll even throw my boy Tim Pool out there too. If you saw his where he took Twitter guy Jack
Dorsey,
Jack Dorsey, and his head counsel, he took them to task in public, and it was great. The format was great. It was a good debate. You kind of saw both sides, and guess what that was on? It was on the Joe Rogan show. So I guess my point is this isn't working. It doesn't serve the American people. the current format and the current method of picking the moderators and the questions for that matter. I personally believe the deck is truly stacked against conservatives, not just Trump, but conservatives in general. I don't know. I can't remember if we discussed this or not, but these questions, the easiest way to answer them is based on emotion. You can give a 1 minute answer based on emotion, but if you give an answer based on logic and facts, that is going to take a lot longer. So therefore these formats don't work. That's it as far as I'm concerned. I think there's some exciting material I'm really looking forward to going forward in the podcast. This one is just kind of, I'm like, God, just sick of it.
Well, and I think part of the format, I mean, and I kind of like what you were saying, maybe the format, and it doesn't get as many listeners as national television. I get it. But like the podcast format, I dig that, where maybe you have both candidates. You can sit down and do 2 or 3 hours. People can listen to it when they want to, go back, listen to it again. Because I will tell you, looking back at Chris Wallace's and his questions, the reason that broke down, besides the obvious that it was Chris Wallace and he has no control, but none of the questions were about policies. You prevent the breakdown by talking about the policies. Everybody's fired up about COVID and this, but nothing, no economic policy was discussed. No foreign policy was discussed. And like you said, and as we saw in the ACB hearings, which we'll get to here in a little bit, they come out with their 1 minute, just, you got to see little Susie here. The picture of, let me draw a little Susie here, with the hair that she had to go get cancer treatment, and you're going to take Susie's treatment away from her because, like you said, they've got the 1 minute. So they throw that emotional appeal out there as opposed to talking about law and policies. And part of the reason for the breakdown, it's the lack of wanting to discuss. Even when you go back and you look at, which we already did, we broke them all down. When you go back and look at the questions that were asked, it's like, what, 2 that maybe tangentially was like, okay, these are like legit policy questions. Because when you ask those open-ended, emotional type questions, that's where you get a lot of that objection. People get heated up, fired up, and they fire back and forth. Josh, I think I cut you off. What were you getting ready to say?
No, I was going to say basically what you said, but Luke is absolutely 100% correct. Those 1 minute responses, those are based on emotion, right? And most of the left's platforms, I would say all the left platforms, are based on nothing more than emotion. And Luke pointed it out. I forget which podcast. We were probably drinking. Luke was, Luke pointed it out. He was like, this is incredibly smart of the left to brand this Black Lives Matter. He's like, in three words, you have now elicited an incredible amount of emotion out of the American populace. And the second, somebody asks you, hey, do Black Lives Matter? Do you support Black Lives Matter? The second that you hesitate and you say, well, you're done. You're done. You are finished. And it's, dude, not to point out, be like, well, all lives matter, or, here's the problem with this, or here's what should happen. Dude, you're done. You either do or you don't. And, the cancel culture will destroy you right there. And that's what these debates are for. And also, I think the majority of the American populace, again, we go back to that, a person is smart, people are stupid. Nobody wants to see, I don't think a younger generation, I don't think they want to see a Lincoln-style Douglas debate. I think that's the best format. They don't want to see a Lincoln-style Douglas debate because they have grown up, on Facebook and Twitter and social media to where I just need 240 characters to get my zinger in, right? To beat you, to win, right? We're not having a debate. I'm just seeing how many people, how many likes I can get, or how many retweets I can get, or whatever. People don't want to. That's what they want to see in a debate, man. They want to see, they want to see Royal Rumble number 6 when the fucking Ultimate Warrior, throws everybody out of the ring over the top rope. That's what they want to see. They don't want to see Lincoln and Douglas sit down and and talk about the geopolitical ramifications of South Ossetia and the conflict there. They don't want to hear that shit. Exactly. People like South Ossetia, that's in South Florida.
Sound like a damn globalist, son.
They don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear a Lincoln style. Nobody wants to sit there for 3 hours and listen to somebody drone on about policy, even though that's the shit that people should be listening to, and that's the stuff that's going to affect their daily lives, right? You pick out Joe and Jane's six pack. A lot of shit that was talked about during the debate, it's not going to affect Joe and Jane's six pack on a daily basis. You know what's going to affect Joe and Jane's six pack on a daily basis? How much in taxes they're paying. That's what's going to affect Joe and Jane's six pack on a daily basis. The inability to purchase a firearm. That's what's going to impact Joe and Jane's six pack on a daily basis. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear anything else. They want their candidate to get their zinger in, and so they can move on, so they can send their tweet out. That's all they want. And you know what? And those people should not be allowed to vote. There absolutely should be a test to vote. There should be an IQ test and a civics test. Absolutely,
Roger.
100%.
Why don't you fill the cup in on what you were talking to me about last night, specifically with the right to vote?
So contrary to popular belief, and I get there have been Supreme Court rulings that go beyond this because they have tried to expound on this a little bit, but there is no guaranteed right to vote in the Constitution, period. You can talk about the 14th Amendment. You can talk about all these, right? People are like, oh, you're full of shit, right? They're blowing their minds. Go back and read, what is it, 3 amendments that talk about it. And again, I'm taking out these Supreme Court rulings because you're looking at modern day interpretations of the Constitution, what have you. When the founding fathers wrote the Constitution and all the amendments and Bill of Rights and this and that, there is no guarantee or no right to vote in there, period. Now, when you look at the amendments and people want to bring up the 14th and a couple of the other ones, they say you cannot discriminate based on race, sex, creed, religion, color, yada, 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 yada. But not that every American inherently has the right to vote. It's not in there. And Josh and I briefly talked about it a couple weeks ago, I think for like 30, 45 seconds before we had to go do whatever. And it's like, well, you know, and I think the Supreme Court has even, this has kind of been their take on it. Well, the founding fathers meant to put it in there. The right to vote is such a huge right? It's such a big topic and such a major topic. It's what our country's founded on is the right to vote, or the ability to vote, the ability to elect your, you know, whether it's your delegates or your town council or whatever. But I'm pretty sure it's such a big topic that the founding fathers didn't forget to put that in there. They didn't say, well, you know what, the right to vote is implied. There was specifically a reason why they didn't put it in there. And I think and I'm not obviously I don't have any type of law background other than being a barracks lawyer when I was like an E4 in the Army. But from what I've heard with some of the Supreme Court justices and some of the media is that they actually specifically, there is language and interpretation that says, yeah, your right to vote can be infringed. Obviously, as a felon, you lose your right to vote, and you have that whole thing in the case, you know, in the courts now, whether they can get it back and can't get it back or whatever. But the bottom line is the right to vote is not there. You just can't discriminate based on those other things. So we can say that everybody's, you know, nobody's got the right to vote for whatever reason. Now, I'm not saying that we go down that path and whatever, but you talk like what Josh is saying, where you talk about having to take a civics. Hey, there's nothing in there that says you don't have to pass an IQ test. Now, does it fall under the 14th Amendment? I don't know. Maybe you make that argument. Maybe you don't, whatever. They probably would make that argument based on, Supreme Court rulings since then. But you get to the point where, I mean, I tell you, when you look at, there is a reason why we are a democratic republic, right? So you elect your local leaders democratically, and then your national leader is elected, you know, by the electorate, by a republic. You vote for people that go and vote for the president. There's a reason for that. And I will tell you, I think when you go back and look at the founding fathers, and I believe it was Thomas Jefferson, that was like, hey, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you really don't want the common person to vote because the common person is a fucking idiot. Right. And then they were also talking about mob rule and things like that with James Madison. And it's like, hey, you know what, you can have significant events that people are so charged over and so emotional about that it actually sways, you know, immediately within a month, within 2 months, within 3 months. And you don't want to have that impact on national level elections or what have you. So there's a reason why our founding fathers put that in there. Now, I'm sure we're going to have some smarter folks out there than us three that will go back and whatever. But I would just encourage anybody to go back and take a look at the it's like Josh said, right? His Josh 3:16, because the Constitution says so, or because it don't, because it's not in there. You just can't discriminate on those things.
On a related topic, I guess, kind of just pointing out some facts. Tell you that in the U.S. there are estimated 48.35 million Twitter users. Okay. In the U.S., and this is as of 2020, in the U.S., there are 223 million Facebook users. That's a lot. In the 2016 election, 138 million people voted. It's amazing to me. The voter turnout in the country is way less than half the country. But yet people are going to scream and yell about their right to vote. But I guess that would be the silent minority, right? I guess. I don't know.
56%.
It's just amazing to me.
56% was the turnout in 2016.
Oh, it's 56.
56% voter turnout.
What's the population of the U.S.? I should
352 million, give or take. I think it's actually 348 was the last, whatever. But
138 million. I wonder if that's like citizens or something, because around 138 million.
Oh, don't forget Democrats can vote twice and when you're dead. So 348
Oh, there
million,
it is.
You're probably looking at actually 400
voting eligible population. See, that's where they get you. The voting eligible population, 58.1%. Yeah. So still, it's still amazing. 223 million users on Facebook, Oh, that's definitely more than half I would say that's even more than half the voting population, because youngsters don't use Facebook anymore. Right, Josh? Josh has no comment. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about Facebook and Twitter. Roger, is it too early to move to our next topic?
You know what? I was going to cover ACB, but let's do it. Let's go on to social media, since everybody's charged on that.
Well, we can roll ACB into this. So toward the end, we'll give you a little behind the curtain here, folks, because somebody asked ACB about that toward the end, about 2:30 and all that. So we can roll it.
Yep. Yeah, I think it was Holly.
I feel like y'all are moving too fast. We haven't even bought each other dinner yet. Right? You just picked me up from the house and gave me some flowers.
A hunter yet?
Oh, God bless it, dude. Dude, this is such a big episode, because we were sitting here for the listeners out there, like, what are we going to talk about? It's like, we're going to talk, we throw 2 or 3 major topics, and you're like, oh, we got to talk about 2:30, and then we got to talk about Steve Sculley, and then my mind, I've got it in my notes here. I totally whiffed on the Hunter Biden thing. Let's do Hunter Biden. That Hunter Biden breaking news today. Go ahead, Josh. Let's talk about Hunter Biden.
No, I was going to say James Woods on Twitter posted the best. It was the one of Hunter Biden in the bathtub with a cigarette, and he put Where's Waldo's glasses, hat, and shirt on him, and it was like, Where's Hunter? And because, dude, you haven't heard anything out of Hunter here for a while, right? As soon as that thing dropped yesterday afternoon or yesterday morning, I was driving to work. And I was getting ready to leave the house, and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't even read the New York Post article when it first dropped. I was like, "Oh, okay. Here's some Hunter emails." It's probably maybe it'll turn into something, maybe it won't. So I posted it I posted the link real quick, and so I got my car headed to work, and as I'm driving to work, and I know, Mom, I'm sorry, but I was driving to work. I was kind of scrolling through the article on my phone, and taking a look, and all of a sudden I started reading it, and I was like, holy shit. Like, this is big. Like, this is huge, because all I can remember is on a few occasions, Joe Biden got asked about it. That was when he got upset with that guy. He started to call him a fat ass, challenged him to push-ups and stuff. And then anytime, he was very defensive of Hunter, very defensive. And I get it. Everybody's defensive of their kids. But when Joe's like, when he came out and said, quote, "I've never asked my son about his overseas business dealings," right? And it was like, all right, nobody believed it. of course, one side's like, oh, that's your Q conspiracy theory, black helicopters. The Senate investigated it. They didn't find any wrongdoing. They said, yeah, it was probably, not in good taste, but, granted, they didn't have these emails. And so you turn around, you're like, holy shit, man, like this is huge. Not only did Joe Biden know about it, but Hunter specifically set up meetings for his dad, not only for Ukraine, but for China as well. Right? Absolutely insane. The whole Hunter thing, absolutely insane. The part people should be pissed off about, and then I'll throw it over to Luke. The part people should be pissed off about is the fact that we, as the American people, sat through an impeachment of a sitting president. We watched the House of Representatives ram through an impeachment based on bad evidence, bad information. They took this phone call there was nothing wrong with it, and used that fat, overweight lunchbox Vindman. No, not Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. Start calling it here and after referred to as lunchbox. Used him to push this impeachment through, and I don't doubt for a second, some of you may disagree. I know Roger will probably disagree. I don't doubt for a second, had the Democrats controlled the Senate and had the votes, I don't doubt for a second that the Senate would have impeached him and removed the president. And here we find out all this time, it was Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. They were the ones that had the quid pro quo. Even you had Joe in a video talking about firing the prosecutor, or they weren't going to get the $1 billion aid package. If that's not quid pro quo, then I guess I've been wrong all my life, right? But we watched that. We watched one of our government institutions be used to do that to a sitting president. And the people out there are so effing stupid that they're going to go out and they're going to vote for this guy. The same ones who are like, yeah, impeach Trump. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. They're going to read these emails. They're going to classify them as Russian intelligence propaganda, and they're going to go out and vote for Joe Biden. You know why? Because they're stupid. Because they're stupid. They don't deserve to vote. They don't deserve to be called Americans. They don't deserve to be here. They should be put on train cars and shipped overseas. Pick your country, buddy. Get out of here. They're terrible. Uninformed voters. They're the worst. The dredges of society.
The cognitive.
But that's, dude, we watched that. And you know what? The second thing, the FBI had these. The FBI had all of these emails. And Giuliani came out and said today, that's only 5% of what we have off that hard drive, or the ones he dropped. Right? So more's coming. The FBI had these, and the FBI, again, the most powerful law enforcement organization in the world, sat there and watched a president be impeached and did nothing. That's what people should be pissed off about. But they won't be, because people are stupid.
Yeah, the level of cognitive dissonance is breathtaking to me. It really is. I didn't realize actually until today, because contrary to what Roger and Josh think about me, I don't actually know everything. So I didn't realize until today that the New York Post is labeled by most as a tabloid, and by the left, it's seen as the equivalent of the National Enquirer. I didn't know that until today. I looked it up quite a bit, and with Rupert, it does have a history of putting out some pretty crazy stories. But I mean, I think we all three noticed people immediately saying, "Oh, this is Russian disinformation." Okay. Those are some pretty good deep, you can say that about the emails or whatever, but man, those are some pretty good deep fakes of Joe or Hunter Biden with a crack pipe in his mouth or right next to him while he's sleeping, cigarette hanging out. I mean, this is, what I take away from this. And, I hope that there's some smart people on the campaign stuff, and they're breaking it down to a very simple narrative based on this stuff that's coming out. I agree with you, Josh, 100%. That's what people should be pissed about. But I think that smart people that, marketing and getting inside people's minds with, have it your way Burger King type generation where, we need that quick takeaway. The takeaways I take from this are Joe Biden equals bad father with Hunter, or at least absent. Okay. That has always been kind of I think that a lot of presidents have been put under the microscope, or potential presidents, based on their children. And a lot of people cast stones at Trump's kids, and all that stuff. But in the past, Obama's kids, Bush's kids, poor Chelsea Clinton, she's so ugly. But, it's kind of a barometer. Can you raise a kid? Can you raise a kid right? And I don't know much about, Beau Biden, but he's definitely wasn't there for Hunter. That's one of the takeaways. The other takeaway, if people want to ignore that and say, well, parents can't be responsible for everything, Hunter is an adult. Well, then Joe Biden was asleep at the wheel. Because, a good follow-up question is, Joe, what about Hunter? I never spoke to my son about his international or foreign business deals. Okay, well, did you pre-brief him on how he should act when he's the son of the vice president and his business dealings with foreign officials? That would have been a great follow-up because, and of course, Biden would have said yes, but obviously that was not made clear to Hunter Biden. It was not made clear to him the type of risk he was putting the vice president of the United States in if his dad didn't know anything about it. It's just, it's a bad look for Joe Biden, and I'll return real quick to the cognitive dissonance and how quickly people were to dismiss this just out of hand if they're on the other side. A friend of mine I don't know if he listens to the show or not. He posted something, New York Post on Facebook, and man, another friend, I guess this guy's left wing, I didn't know, just started ragging on New York Post. And that's where I looked up New York Post to, see, well, what's he talking about? It's a tabloid. And what's he talking about? This, they put out this story, they put out that story. And I'm going down and they're arguing back and forth in this little message thing. And I was like, the arguments that this guy's using are reminiscent of something I've seen before. And I had to think about it for a few minutes. And I realized it's this, and I'm going to quote, "Ridicule is man's most potent weapon. There is no defense. It is almost impossible to counterattack ridicule. Also, it infuriates the opposition who then react to your advantage." So that's a quote by Saul Alinsky from Rules for Radicals. And it really is a good play on this one. Ridicule the source. We won't get into the Twitter's reasons for saying that they weren't going to allow it to be spread on their platform, but they're ridiculing the source immediately. Who's the computer repairman who provided this information to whomever, who reported it? There was more information on that guy, on that computer repair shop within the first 12 hours than there was on the actual information that came out of it. So, I guess it's good that some of the media is kind of doing some due diligence on this one for once, but the ridicule is what gets me. And the fact that people are so quick to jump on Russian collusion. And it's like, or not Russian collusion, but Russia disinformation. Now, one real quick point before I go to Roger. It was either hacked, okay, or it was disinformation. It's one or the other. If you're going to make one of those arguments, it can't be both. Because if it was hacked, why would it be disinformation? And if it's disinformation, why would you need to hack it? You see what I'm saying? So when people are making these arguments, deconstruct their arguments real quick and try to trace it back to the facts. I'd encourage people to look at the actual pictures of this guy. Look at the emails, sure, but look at the pictures. I mean, if that's disinformation, those are really good deep fakes. And like Josh said, man, there's a lot more information coming out on this. So to boil it down, Joe Biden equals bad or absent father with Hunter, and Joe Biden asleep at the wheel.
And I tell you, when you look at the laptop, so let's go back to what were on the emails, and this kind of takes us into the next segment anyway. But long story short, there are some emails found, and one was to Vadim Posharsky, advisor to the board of Burisma, and I guess this may be where you can play with words. It's like, I never talked to my son what was going on in Burisma. Well, no, you didn't, because you just actually met with them instead. Because what was on the email or what were on the several emails. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. And that's paraphrased. And then there was another email that comes out. Hunter, use your quote unquote influence on the company's behalf. So I got a couple things on this. Here's how you know it is true. And I don't even care about the computer owner in this. One, you have to be a stupid MFer if you've got that. So when I take my laptop and like it's gone and dead, I have a Tupperware drawer or a Tupperware in there with about 4 hard drives in it from laptops that I've had for probably 15 years now. So I throw everything out. I pull the hard drive. I even pull the RAM out. All right. That's how paranoid I am. I pull both those out and I throw them in there. And I'm like, I'll destroy them one day. And they're sitting in there and they've been in there for, a decade or whatever. How dumb do you have to be to take your computer to a place like that and leave it? And here's the other thing. This is what really, truly leads me to believe that this is all accurate. This is very easy to defend. If those emails were never sent, if the emails aren't yours, if it's not your laptop, it's very easy to defend. Like Josh said, where's Hunter? Because if that's not mine, okay, so I'm gonna take a stance for things that I'm lying about. I am definitely going to dig my heels in for things that I know I'm right about. Right? So if this is all fake and the emails never happened and Joe Biden never met with Posharsky or whatever the hell his name is, and if he never had anything to do with any of that stuff, then it's very easy if you're Hunter Biden to come out and say, look, let me tell you something, I've got some personal issues. Obviously, you guys have read about that. I'm dealing with my ex-wife and baby mama, yada, yada, yada. I've got some other issues I've dealt with in my past, but I don't know who this computer guy is. I never took my laptop there, and I never sent those emails. Period. That's all he has to say. Now, there'll be those on the right, because you're never going to convince those on the right that firmly believe it, and that's not who you're trying to convince. But I do believe for a lot of the folks on the left, and even for some of the moderates, somebody that comes out, and I guess I say this, but then you get the Steve Sculley thing. I would just tend to believe that it's very, very easy to defend. It's stupid easy to defend. And then the Biden campaign, they can't. So their argument against it was, well, we checked his official schedule and there's no meeting on there. No shit. When I'm going to go meet with my Coke dealer, okay, I don't put it on my work calendar. Right?
Next door to
you just kind of go do it. You say, hey, I'm eating lunch at the, whatever. And then you got 7 minutes, you kind of sneak out and you do your thing. So clearly Joe Biden is not going to put on his VP official calendar that's open to FOIA and everything else that, I'm meeting with the advisor to the board of Burisma over some, illegal foreign influence that my son wants me to do. That's not going to happen. And then to go even farther, the Biden campaign says, well, Twitter blocked, and this takes us into our next segment. Good segue. Good call, Luke. Twitter blocked the New York Post. So it's fake. And here's the crazy thing before we get to the next one. I was just reading on Twitter a little bit ago that Washington Post is now fact-checked, and they've said that, well, Joe Biden didn't pressure anybody to quit over there. I'm like, the guy is on tape. I mean, I get frustrated, right? I get so frustrated with this because they forget that the internet was around. The guy is on tape bragging about it. So how can you get there and fact check it? And then I mean, Luke, you could probably, you would carve this thing up because it pisses me off on how and then when they talk about Joe Biden meeting with Burisma folks or advisors or whatever, we can't find any proof that it happened. So it just didn't happen. Okay. That's not a fact check. Okay. That's not a fact check. Now, what you can say is that we attempted to fact check and we could find no those emails, whatever, that show that he met with them. And you leave it at that. Because who knows? Something may come up a little bit later. But it just goes back to if you're Hunter Biden, dude, you got to be dumb, man. Like, really? But it goes back to, before we go on, it goes to what you just said, Luke, that didn't somebody brief Hunter Biden on this, how you should act and this and that? They did. When they briefed him? When he was 5 years old, when his father first entered government. Yeah. That's the problem. His father, and I know Josh is probably typing this down because he's going to use this against me in a later episode. So what'll happen is before we go to that, we'll cut it and we'll save it for next week. So he'll forget that shit because he'll be drunk. But, He was taught this at 5, 6, 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 years old, 20 years old. But that's the life that Hunter's always grown up in. And you can't tell me that as a father, like you said, Luke, you're a shitty dad. You're a shitty dad. Well, one, it's just a straight out lie because everybody knew about it. It was brought to the Obama campaign or to the Obama administration. It was brought to the Biden administration. So they can say what they want, but it's just flat out lying. And I think that's what brings me, that's what causes me so much frustration. And I know they do it on the right. I know they do it on the left. So though this is targeted at the Democrats, it's just lately you're hearing a lot more of it from the left because obviously President Trump is the incumbent. But at what point are people held accountable for just straight out lying? Right out. It's not even like, hey, I'm stretching the truth, or you were, there's some tangential truth to this, if this and that. It's just straight out lying.
There used to be a day when so here's a great example. In one of Joe Biden's previous campaigns for president, Joe Biden stated that he graduated at the top of his class, that he had obtained multiple degrees, and come to find out, shockingly enough, brace yourselves, it was a lie, right? And so when they're playing this clip on the news, and it's on YouTube.
He was like 78 out of 80 or something like that, right? Or something like that.
Dude, he graduated toward the bottom of his class. He was stupid. It's like Bob Gates said, Joe Biden has been wrong on every foreign policy matter for the last 40 years, right? And Bob Gates served for Bush and Obama and was the best SecDef we have probably ever had. For those of you, you're going to start saying that, well, he was a Republican. Shut up. So but that was a time, and even the news reporters, I remember what really stood out was that, the news anchors, they said, this is going to ruin his campaign. He lied about where he graduated in his class was going to ruin his campaign. Dude, nobody even bats an like that. They wouldn't even fact check that. They would be like, Joe Biden's the smartest person alive. They wouldn't even fact check it. You look at where we have gone from then, right? Scandals involving politicians, was they got a DUI, or, they had a bunch of unpaid parking tickets. We as in the American people, allowed Ted Kennedy to kill a human being. We allowed that. We did not hold him accountable. We allowed a sitting senator to murder a human being, and we didn't do shit about it. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh my God, Trump said derogatory things about women in a locker room. It's like, really? That's what you got? That's what you got. Okay. We have allowed things like the weaponization of the FBI and the intelligence community to overturn a duly elected sitting president. The same one that the news has pushed false narratives. The news has pushed multiple false narratives. It is absolutely insane where we've gone and what we're willing to accept from politicians. We impeached Bill Clinton for, using Monica Lewinsky as a humidor. Okay. But by and large, guess what? Nobody cared. Everybody's like, yeah, whatever. Right? So you set a new standard. It's just like the military, right? When you walk past somebody who is wrong and you don't make that on-the-spot correction, you have now set a new standard. That person thinks, well, what I was doing was okay because people walked past me. They didn't say anything. They didn't stop me, right? And I'm not a saint. I'll never say I am one. I'll never be one. And, I think I'm okay. But when I get to the pearly gates, St. Peter's probably going to be like, we're going to let you in, but we got some shit we need to talk about. We have completely allowed our politicians to be held to a lower standard than we hold ourselves. They should be held to a higher standard, like our law enforcement, like our military. They should be held to a higher standard than your normal, average, everyday schmo. But we don't.
So, Josh, I see what you're doing here. I'm not quite as smart as Amy Coney Barrett, but I see through the line of questioning where you're taking this, and you're not going to jump this next topic to get to the topic that you want to get to. So I feel like ACB and you are Kamala Harris. But the New York Post article, and I don't disagree with you at all, but we'll get to that later. The New York Post article actually brings up a bigger topic, a much bigger topic. And this is something that Luke was heated yesterday. And so we ended up getting on a little call, and he wouldn't let me explain my position. He just kept, it's Luke. You guys have seen Luke and you've heard him, and he just kind of went on. I was like, hey dude, if you shut the hell up, I'll tell you where I'm coming from on this thing or what have you. But it comes back down to the Communications Decency Act and Section 230. And the fact that Twitter went in and blocked the post of the New York Post talking about the emails, and Facebook, they did their limited distribution, which I don't know what that means. I don't know. It doesn't show up in as many people's feeds or what have you. But that brought up the bigger issue, because according to Section 230, and Luke can go into this in much greater detail than I can. But the bottom line is, when they came out with Section 230, Communication Decency Act, that platforms on the internet basically were not considered publishers and were not held liable for anything. They could distribute what they wanted. They could say whatever they wanted. And so they're not held liable. So you can't sue them. And no, you can't sue them for posts that they don't host. They're basically just distributors. And what happened was Twitter went and blocked the post, blocked access, and Facebook limited the distribution. And then they went down and McEnany's account, as well as several other accounts, went in and either blocked their accounts, deactivated it, or whatever, because they had links to the same post. So then Luke and I got into this debate about censorship. And we've had this discussion several times before, but how far do you take it? How do you censor? What should you censor? And when it comes down to Twitter and Facebook, and I'll throw this to you, Luke, so you can kind of state your position, your thoughts on it. But should Twitter have been able to block that? And you do bring up some valid points with, and I think with any reasonable person, you can see that this sways an election. This is election interference, because when you look at Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's ties to it, it does speak to character. It does speak to integrity. It speaks to a lot of other factors that if you are an undecided voter, which I don't think there are too many, I think the only undecided voters are those that are going to vote left or right or just not vote at all. I don't think anybody's like, Trump or Biden. It's just kind of whether I go to the polls or not. But I do think that the article that came out is, and Twitter's blocking of it and Facebook's handling of it, is election interference. So, Luke, in your mind and in your perspective, and you're much more in tune with this, especially with you as an author and as a writing several books, should there be, I guess, should they fall under Section 230s, Twitter and Facebook specifically, and then how do we handle the broader internet?
I'll give you some credit. First of all, I mean, when we first brought this up a couple of months ago, however long it was, I thought that I was very set in what I thought should happen. And Roger, in the very antagonistic way, starts questioning everything I'm saying and all this stuff. And I get y'all should have heard the conversation last night, man. I was yelling into the phone. I was like,
it was like 4 minutes.
I know what you're gonna say. I know what you're gonna say. It was bad, but when Roger finally gets past his antagonistic nature of just trying to rub you, the wrong way, and you listen to his points, he brings up some good points. There's a lot of stuff I hadn't thought about. So here's what I'll say for now is I think that something needs to be done, some sort of regulation. I'm not going to say censorship. I don't know. I think everyone should do this. Like, really tear apart your own views on what you think should happen and then play it out in your mind. And I think Roger does a good job at that, and say, does this really make sense, what I'm proposing? And I haven't really quite come up with a full logical regulation that would cover this. I just know it's a problem. And like Roger said, election interference. I mean, it can be considered that when you're throttling information to potential voters. But there again, I mean, you start following this stuff down the rabbit hole, and Roger does have a point with it is a private company. But getting back to the publisher thing real quick, I'm kind of all over the place here, but being a publisher, as soon as it's supposed to be a platform, as we've all said, to remind you where I stand, it's supposed to be a platform where everybody can get on there and everybody can say whatever they want. And it's up to the individual to decide whether it's BS or not. Unfortunately, most individuals are stupid. But the moment that platform starts editorializing content, which means they start deciding what can and can't go on there, by my view, they become a publisher. That means they're controlling information. They're controlling what you see. And once you're a publisher, you're liable for what's on your platform. Now you're talking about doing this on scale at scale with just in the US with Twitter's 48.3 million, Facebook is 223 million. That is a tall order to say, okay, now you're now responsible for everything on your platform. Now, what Facebook and Twitter back at the, I think Christchurch shooting in New Zealand, the guy live streamed it. And, Facebook, I mean, they're handling stuff at scale. And I mean, to ask them to, moderate something that's happening in real time across the globe, that's a big ask, man. So, I'm still formulating what I think should happen with this. I haven't, delved into the Communications DC Act Section 230 as much as I should have. I'm not a lawyer also, and I do have a life, so I haven't looked into that much. I just know that something should be done. And right now, the way I see it, it's either black or white. As where I stand right now, it's either black or white. There is no gray. It's like you either let everything go or you become a publisher and you deal with the consequences of that. The problem is there's a lot of money involved, so they're not going to be given that black or white choice. There's going to be some talks that are had in the dark halls of Washington, D.C. and Silicon Valley. There's going to be deals made and so on and so forth. I recognize that the social media platforms have a big task, but at the same time, man, you can't be a publisher and, not be subject to the same rules that the media and publishers are subjected to. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not just. Now, one of the things, like we go down the election interference rabbit hole, and one of my pet peeves, kind of sidebar here, one of my pet peeves is when, and it happens a lot with Josh actually, and it's not Josh's fault. Josh doesn't do the pet peeve. It's other people commenting on Josh's stuff. It's one of the reasons I'm not on Facebook very much anymore, where Josh will say quite often, that's a slippery slope. And people just dogpile on him like slippery slope is a logical fallacy because they went to Google, looked up slippery slope, and it takes to the Wikipedia logical fallacies page. Is slippery slopes in there? Well, I'm a student of logic. I'm not great at it, but I'm a student of it. I know a little bit about it. And slippery slope, that's like saying, okay, well, slippery slope is a logical fallacy, actually. Well, that's like saying the phrase, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Well, actually, that's a logical fallacy. No, it's not logic, man. It's looking at information from the past, from the present, and making an assumption about what's going to happen in the future. That's not necessarily a logical fallacy. It's how you affect. By the way, if you people out there don't understand this, human beings, that's exactly how we function, is based on cause and effect. That's how we learn. That's how we live. It's hardwired into us, cause and effect. So really what slippery slope is making an assumption on what cause and effect might be. That doesn't necessarily mean it's right 100% of the time, but it's a good indicator of what might happen. And we can go down the road of stereotyping and stuff like that later. But you do the slippery slope on this thing with social media. They're just allowed to throttle whatever they want. And some people are going to start learning some very valuable lessons if they're allowed to keep doing what they're doing. And those valuable lessons are going to be for opposition who can pay basically to throttle all information on a candidate, that positive or negative, and keep people from seeing it. And the bigger these social media companies grow, And this is one of the things Roger and I was yelling at Roger about last night. He's like, it's not critical infrastructure. I was like, not yet, but it's getting close. I mean, got all these, I'm safe from the earthquake. Pretty soon, I'm telling you, Facebook and Twitter are going to start, they're going to have these pages where it's like, hey, if you're living in this area, there's an earthquake coming, earthquake detection, tornado alerts, stuff like that. It's going to become what the radio and TV are for emergency broadcasting. I mean, it's natural. It's a slippery slope, but you guys watch, it's going to happen. So it's coming with 223 million users. It's becoming akin to critical infrastructure. So Josh, I've talked a lot here. So you go.
Actually, before Josh kicks off real quick, let me read a couple of things from the Communications Decency Act. And I'm not going to sit there and read through the whole thing, but just a couple of things. So it talks about the policy, Section 230, is to preserve the vibrant and competitive free market that presently exists for the internet and other interactive computer services unfettered by federal state regulation, and more to the point where Luke's talking about, to encourage the development of technologies which maximize user control over what information is received by individuals, families, and schools who use internet and other internet or interactive computer services. And then it gets into protection for Good Samaritan, blocking screen of offensive material. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. So with that being said, I'll kick it over to Josh just to kind of give our listeners some background on Section 230.
Am I allowed to speak now?
Well, okay, so if we want to full transparency, so for about the fourth time, because he's drinking, Josh was on mute. So I have to fill in that dead air so I don't have to go back and edit it. So that's why I cut in with the Communications Decency Act. So let me know, Josh, if you want me to continue reading this next time, or we can just have the dead space.
I just want to know if it was my turn now. It's like kindergarten. You just let me know when I can talk, teacher. So we had, I know you and Luke had a separate conversation, afterwards, but we had a pretty spirited conversation on this yesterday over Messenger while we were all at work. Well, at least while some of us were at work. Some of us actually work for a living. So what we saw yesterday was a militarization of social media. What you saw yesterday with, them banning the New York Post, with them banning the article about Hunter Biden's emails, that was a modern day book burning. That's exactly what that was, right? And so this has been happening for some time. This didn't start, Twitter didn't start this, Facebook didn't start this, but what was more just appalling is the press personalities, right? The news media personalities who came out yesterday and supported that. Think about that. The press, the news media came out yesterday and supported that. Automatically dislike, oh, that's Russian disinformation. That's fake news, right? When Donald Trump calls something fake news, when Donald Trump first called the press the enemy of the people, those same press, those same people, those same personalities that came out yesterday and lauded Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg for suppressing information, suppressing news. Doesn't matter how crazy it is or how crazy you may think it is. They lauded them. Those same people they were clutching their pearls when Donald Trump called them the enemy of the press 4 or 5 years ago. They were they were beside themselves. They were like, "What? You're questioning my virtue? How dare you?" Right? Greta showed up, and how dare you? Those same people yesterday actively supported the suppression of news. That's the world we live in. That's the country we live in right now. That's the scariest shit that I have seen in a very long time. in a very long time. When the press is actively supporting suppression of news they do not agree with. That's insane. That is truly insane. And you don't have to apply it to all social media. You don't have to say we're stripping everybody's 230 protections away. You only apply it to those who are acting in that manner. Twitter and Facebook, right? This isn't the military. You don't have to do mass punishment. You only discipline the kids who are acting wrong. Or as my grandma used to say, not acting right. Right? So you strip Twitters and Facebook's 230 protections away because they came out. Even Facebook made a post. Zuckerberg posted, we made a, quote, editorial decision. End quote. You called yourself an editor. You made an editorial decision. There you go. You played yourself. You are now an editor, and you should be treated as such. For them to lose those protections, and then, and Luke brings up a good point, man. To police that many millions of users, to police, live feeds, live streams, that is a big ask. That's a huge ask. But guess what? You brought it upon yourself. And I loathe government intervention in anything, right? Our government should be 75% smaller than it is. However, at the same time, when you have social media platforms that are basically the equivalent to Roosevelt's, right? When you have those that are equivalent to those fireside chats, that's how people got their news. And you're absolutely right, Luke. That's social media is that is the news of the future. People are going to go. That's going to be the emergency broadcast system. You're now no longer just some private company. And at the end of the day, guess what? Private businesses, they have regulations from the government levied against them every day. So why should Facebook and Twitter be different? When they are actively, they also, not only to Kaylee's account, dude, but they locked out the Trump campaign account for retweeting that New York Post article. A campaign, a political campaign, social media locked it out. I don't know how long it was locked down. It may have been minutes. It may have been an hour. I don't know. But the fact that was allowed to happen, and then Jack Dorsey came out, he didn't offer an apology. He just said, yeah, we got to handle that a little bit better. No shit. No shit, Jack. Well, guess what? You crossed the Rubicon yesterday. You crossed it. It's done. When you locked out, Donald Trump loves Kayla McKinney. You locked her account out. He lost his mind. And guess what? Maybe the press is the enemy of the people. And this is not a term that should be used lightly, but maybe the press is the enemy of the people. And now you have Steve Sculley coming out saying, yeah, I wasn't hacked. I made that shit up. I'm anti-Trump. Yeah, I'm a press guy. Dude, you're just feeding the machine. Dude, I would love to see Donald Trump at the rally tonight. Like, I want to watch that and listen to him, because I have a feeling he is going to burn people to the ground. And he should. So when it comes to 230 protections, guess what? You did it to yourself. I don't feel sorry for you. I hope and I pray that Twitter, after the election, 6 months from now, I hope it looks like Craigslist. Dude, and if Parler would get their shit together and get somebody besides a 10-year-old to do their programming, Parler could have been great. But their algorithms, everything is hot garbage. I could have done better shit on my Commodore 64. And Parler is garbage, man. It's garbage. It's an echo chamber, which I don't like, for starters. But even if it was an echo chamber, I would probably use it a little bit more if the algorithms were better. It's not user friendly. It's garbage, man. It's absolutely garbage. They tried to be like Twitter instead of just doing your own thing. Don't try and be like anybody else. Just do your own thing. You be you, or some shit. So I'll kick it over to Roger since he wants to talk. I'm glad I was able to get my thoughts in there. So there you go, Roger. Now you can talk about ACB.
There you go. Just blame it on me because you can't hit the mute button. That's all good. On 230, so it really boils down to, and they don't really, I actually did some searching to try to find some definitions of this. And I think we're all actually on the same sheet of music, but we just have to look at it, or I'm looking at it from a little different perspective. So I think overall the answer is, and I busted Luke's balls on this as far as more regulation, bigger regulation, more regulation, bigger government, da 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 da. It's actually not more regulation. It would be deregulation. It's the regulation that protects Twitter, Facebook, other social media platforms. So maybe the answer is to get rid of 230 altogether. When you look at the three classifications, you basically have a publisher, you have a distributor, and you have a platform. And when social media first came out, they were really considered to be a platform, not a publisher or distributor. Once you are classified to, once you're classified as a distributor, according to the Fourth Circuit Court, you're liable for the information that you are aware of. So like you consciously publish something, you actually put something out, you're liable for that information. And then obviously if you're a publisher, you're liable for everything. So maybe the answer, Luke and Josh, I guess more specifically Luke in our conversation, maybe the answer is you get rid of 230 altogether, because before Luke in his books and this, I wasn't aware of section 230. So my answer has always been just make them all liable for what they publish or what they print or what they put on the internet or what they aggregate, because that's the reality. If I can go, and I'm not saying that everybody should be sue happy and this and that and lawsuits, and I understand it, that it may have a negative impact because people may be more censored as these larger companies, as these larger companies have more money to lose or have something at stake. But maybe that's the answer, is that, hey, you just make them all liable for everything, just like you do anybody else. Just like you do of anybody else. If you go out there and you slander somebody on TV or this, that, you can be sued. So maybe that's the answer. And that's kind of the perspective I'm looking at it, is maybe it's not over-regulation or more regulation. Maybe you just deregulate it all and you get rid of 230, or at least recraft it and you rewrite it. I think you rewrite it and maybe you don't offer some of the same protections, because the problem that you get to is, where do you draw that line? Josh brought up the argument that Facebook is big. Well, that's their problem, and they just have to. Well, actually, the Supreme Court said that no, they don't have to because they're too big, and it was actually in reference to a bookstore where the Supreme Court, a bookstore was being sued for carrying pornographic material, and the Supreme Court, and this goes back to the difference between publishers, distributors, and platforms, where the Supreme Court came out and said that, look, a bookstore cannot be held accountable for every single word of every single book that is in their bookstore, especially back when we used to have big bookstores. But they can be held liable for the ones that they know about. So you knowingly carry this, you knowingly are pushing this, whatever. So on that aspect, it's I think that might be the answer to all of it, is just deregulate it, or at least recraft section 230, where, hey, you know what, if Twitter blocks your account, you should be able to sue them, right? Why not? If Facebook does that, you should be able to sue them. They should have some processes in place there, their terms of service and this and that you agree to when you sign up for it. And especially for those that are spending money, because that's a whole different ball game. Like when we boost our Facebook ads and Twitter, now you're getting finances involved. That's a totally different ball game altogether.
And that may be where New York Post has, and I don't know, I'd have to look real close at like the terms of service with Twitter and Facebook. If they could demonstrate that they lost revenue because of that,
absolutely.
They may have a case,
And that's always been my argument with Luke. I think we're arguing the same thing. I always try to bring perspective to, okay, as a small business partner or whatever, for anybody out there that has a small business, at what point can the government get involved in your business and how you conduct it? Now, Josh said, oh, there's already regulations. Yeah, that's great. Let's just throw in another one. Why not just add another one? That's just not the way to do business. So, but where is that line at? Because there obviously is a line, and there are a lot of regulations that we have to live by and that we work by. But when you say, okay, what we're going to regulate, and I guess in this case, maybe deregulate. So at what point would Facebook and Twitter, okay, you say those two, but how do you objectively determine who else should fall under that or shouldn't fall under that? Do you do it by market capital? Hey, if you're this size, because that's really how you're going to determine influence. It's not really an apples to apples comparison, but you can probably determine influence based on market cap. Or
when you first brought that up, I was like, what a dick. What's he even talking about? Market cap and market share, all this stuff. And I was like, when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. And that was actually last night. I was like, we do right? I mean, once you get over, a million, whatever, now you're subject to, a different whatever. I don't know. I'm still formulating the opinion on that.
It's tough because then you can even go back to personal blogs and say, okay, well, if it's a personal blog, it's not that big of a deal until you get to 1 million users, then it is a big deal. But then again, you break it down. Well, my personal blog, am I publishing information? Is my personal blog,
and it's about food and it's about cooking,
Right. So you say, so it is very tough. And I would totally agree with, you. And I think Josh he's feverishly there, trying to text us, whatever. So I think Twitter's down. Is that right? Is Twitter down now?
Yep. Twitter, it is experiencing a 100% outage right now. It is hard down, which is hilarious.
So here's my my question. Do you wonder, is that an internal thing or maybe an outside attack with some folks that are like, hey, you know what? Yep, you want to censor us? We'll show you.
No, they're doing 100% critical race theory.
Shut it off. Shut it off.
Hey, man, maybe Anonymous. You haven't heard anything out of Anonymous in a while.
That's a good point.
Maybe Anonymous is like, okay, not a problem.
And this does go
we'll go ahead and take care of
back to like the logical slippery slope thing. It does bring up a bigger issue because we were talking about last night. We talked about historical, issues where they talked about the radio waves and I think this was years ago, maybe even almost 10 years ago, where they were saying, well, the right side, the right conservatives, they dominate the airwaves and that's just not fair. And you're really censoring and you're cutting out the liberals and this and that. So for every minute that a conservative has on the airwaves, a radio station has to put a liberal program on there. So, I mean, it does go, I mean, it gets really deep and I don't know how you craft it, but I will say this before we moved on to Amy Coney Barrett. And this is my prediction. It's a little black helicopterish, but I don't think anything gets done with Section 230 because I think it's like the NRA and the anti-gun folks. The left loves the way it is because most of your big platforms are controlled by the left. They're controlled by liberals. So they like it because they're able to control the information. They're able to control what you see. They're able to control what you read, influence you, what have you. The right also likes it because it validates their whole deep state. It validates the conspiracy. And I'm not saying it's all wrong. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is it does validate that. I mean, think about this. When you're the Trump campaign, like when you look at Steve Sculley and then what went down with the New York Post, that validates everything that guy's been saying for the last 4 years. The media is out to get, and here's what's worse. And we haven't even talked about this yet. Steve Sculley works for C-SPAN. That's like the one news source that you would say, okay, I'm actually, because it's boring as all F, right? One place where you're like, okay, I'm going to go to C-SPAN to watch news. And during ACB's hearing, we actually went to C-SPAN, my wife and I, because I was tired of Fox News cutting in and giving me their little opinion. I'm like, no, I want to hear her answers and I want to hear all the senators. And so that, you remove Steve Sculley from that and you say, the guy worked for C-SPAN. So if you're on the right, the only way you continue to validate that, deep state, the MSM and the media hates me and they're out to get me is by leaving it alone. And you don't do anything with it. And it's no different than the NRA. And I love some of the NRA, but if you don't have folks out there, hey, you see the price, and I got it's the protests and this and that, but the price of guns and ammo, look at that over the last 15 years. You tell me which way it's going. So it is beneficial to both sides. So my opinion up front, I will say that nothing happens to 230 in the near future. And I know Josh is chomping at the bit.
The left, had they not gone insane on everybody with the media, and the media, hadn't shifted hard to the left, The left hates Rush Limbaugh. They hate him.
Yep.
But guess what? Rush Limbaugh would be doing auctions in West Texas right now had they not gone hard left in the media. Those personalities like Rush Limbaugh would have never been nationally known had the media remained the media, right? The way it was originally intended. I report the news, you decide, right? It was truly that simple. But they couldn't leave well enough alone, and the media is truly the enemy of the people. I don't believe anything I hear on the news anymore. Unless there's some video with it, I don't believe everything I hear on the news. And even when I see the video, I want to dig a little bit deeper, right? I shouldn't have to do that. And Luke's 100% right. The Tim Pools, dude, they are absolutely the way ahead when it comes to investigative reporting. They absolutely. So yeah, I'll let you. You can kick us into the notorious
ACB. So I would tell you this: I've actually been able to hear probably 99% of her hearing, the committee hearing, and it's you're going to have folks on the left that obviously shit all over and this and that. I would tell you this: for anybody who sat there and actually listened to her, smartest person I've seen or listened to speak, maybe ever, but she's definitely a top 5. Very well composed. You know, we posted something on her Facebook page because I think it was Cornyn that asked her, "Are you even taking notes or whatever?" She's like, "Nope," and holds up her notepad and it's completely blank. Like, I have notes for this show and all we do is watch Josh drink and not hit his mute button, right? So I have to have notes for that. But she's sitting here talking about, you know, Supreme Court precedents and other cases and rulings and live fact checking. She is fact checking the shit out of them live in real time. They're like this and that. And she's like, no, actually, that wasn't the case. This was the reason for the ruling. This was the precedent, yada, yada, yada. And doing this live from her memory. So extremely smart. But here's what I would tell you. And I think we knew all this anyway. But Hirono, Coons, Klobuchar, who I actually lost a lot of respect for, Booker, and the rest of the Democrats, they basically believe that ACB is a racist. And that's what they've said time and time. Now, they haven't come right out like they did with Kavanaugh and say that you were a rapist, but they believe that she is a racist.
They did ask, though. They did ask.
Yeah, and Hirono asked. Yeah, Hirono asked. Now, Coons actually got dropped by who the hell is the guy from the ABA? And the guy from the ABA was basically like, Coons, you know, passive aggressive. She's not diverse enough. And he didn't say it, but he basically was like, ACB is not a racist. And then Coons like, whoa. We're not. Hey, I didn't call her a racist. I didn't even suggest that she. No, you actually did suggest that she's a racist. Because all you did was use the term diversity. You replaced racist with diversity. Where's her diversity? Well, you know what? She's got 2 black kids that she adopted from, I think, Haiti, right? So whoever said it was, there's nobody in that room that can speak to her about diversity. You know what I mean? Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, I forget which senator it was, but it was one of the Democrats stated she has African-American children. And I remember, because I was driving back from Kentucky, listening on the radio, and it was like, well, she has 2 African-American, you have 2 African-American children. And it was like, Haiti is not in Africa, you stupid ass, right? It brought back memories of the one guy who was like, Guam's going to tip over. We've got too many military service members there. Guam is going to tip over, right? It was like, their children are African-American. No, they're not. Haiti's not in Africa.
So I got a couple of things on this, and it's not directly related to her. She's overly qualified. Like I said, smartest person I probably ever listened to, if not one of the top 5 or top 10 or what have you, knows her stuff. I believe she'll rule the way the Constitution says that you're supposed to. I will say this for all you folks out there. So I got a couple pieces of information. So for all you folks out there that are worried about healthcare and ACA, and you've seen Biden's commercials, 150 million Americans are going to lose their health insurance on January 21st if Donald Trump wins or whatever. So one, we heard this with John Roberts and the ACA, and we all know how that came out, because I will tell you this, that to steal a term from somebody I watched on TV, I can't remember who the hell his name is, the left looks at the Supreme Court as an auxiliary legislative branch. Whereas the right, they look at him as, hey, you're a judge, and you know what? If you don't like this ruling, it's probably because your laws are effed up. Okay, so going back to the ACA and losing healthcare. So let me break this down for most people. And I think, I don't know anybody on the ACA. I'm not saying there aren't people out there on it. I'm not saying people don't know anybody on it or this and that or whatever. And maybe some of our listeners are on it. There are already protections against pre-existing conditions. There are already protections against rate hikes based on pre-existing conditions. So when you talk about pre-existing conditions, it boils down to two categories. One, an insurance company can deny your coverage because you have whatever it is. Or two, and this is extremely debatable, we can actually raise your rates because you have whatever condition. But as far as dropping out, or as far as people losing their insurance, the ACA only applies to individuals who purchase insurance on an individual basis, which somebody can fact check me. I think it's like 20 million people. HIPAA 1996 already protects those that get their health care through their employer. Medicaid already protects lower income folks that can't afford health care, period. So there are already pre-existing conditions. They sit there and time again, the Democrats conflate it. 150 million Americans. No, they're not. The 20 million people aren't. Now, I will say this, that we can, and we talk about this, the whole point of insurance is not the whole point. When you look at insurance costs in general, whether it's automobile insurance, life insurance, whatever, it's based on risk. It's based on risk, and it is a business and how much money they are going to have to spend to cover you, protect you, whatever. So in my mind, not getting too deep into it, not wanting to piss too many people off, if you are at a higher risk, maybe you should pay more. If I drive a Ferrari, guess what? My car insurance is going to be higher. Second piece, Democrats conflating, just like they did with the mail-in voting, court packing. So now the Democrats are trying to conflate court packing with filling an open Supreme Court position. Two different issues. Court packing is increasing the number of seats, i.e. right now we have 9 and we go to 11. Right now we have 9 and we're going to 13. Right now we have 9 and we're going to 100. So basically you'll start an arms race if you do the court packing. Okay. Filling an empty seat is not court packing. And Luke will bring it up. He's got a pretty good analogy for it. But the Democrats are conflating the two, just like they did with the mail-in voting. Yes, I have mailed in my ballots before, and that is mail-in voting. By definition, yes, because I have physically mailed in my ballot. It's mail-in voting. Everybody's mail-in vote. Yes, but there's a difference between me requesting a ballot from my county recorder and him sending it to me versus, hey, here's 150 million ballots. Let's just fire this shit out the window. And whoever, it's kind of like the ads you get. It says, first and last name or current resident. Okay, there's a big difference between those two. And that's what the Democrats are trying to conflate. Court packing versus filling open seats. And the third thing before I throw it to Luke, gets me above and beyond all of it, is they're voting not against ACB. They're voting against the procedures that they put in place. They're the ones that created these laws. And they sit up there and they lecture her. And I know what's going. She's a much better person than any one of us, because all three of us would be like, well, you're the dumbass that wrote the law. All I do is interpret it. You want the law changed, then you need to go change it. You're the legislature. You change it. I'm not here to tell you, you don't, hey, you know what? There's a reason why they were trying to corner her, right? With Roe v. Wade. Would you consider that super precedent? Actually, nobody considers Roe v. Wade super precedent. And I'm chomping at the bit one day. We're going to talk about this, and we brought it before, because I would tell you this, from what I've read, almost any legal scholar or judicial scholar says that's one of the worst written decisions ever. One of the worst written ones ever. And it just hasn't been brought up yet to that level. And the Supreme Court has not made the determination to take a case up that challenges that. And for those out there that aren't familiar with the Supreme Court, it's not like the Supreme Court can just sit there and say, hey, I'm going to relook at this. No, actually, guess what? Something's got to be filed. There's got to be a case. It's got to go to the lower courts. It goes to its appeals. It goes to the circuit court. And then it finally comes up to the Supreme Court. It's not like they can just sit here and say, hey, you know what? We're overturning Roe v. Wade because I just don't like it. That's not going to happen. But anyway, those are my major issues with it, and a little bit of my public service announcement. So I'll throw it to Luke to get his thoughts on the hearing.
Yeah, talk about the insurance, Josh. He's having some technical difficulties. I really hope he spilled all his whiskey all over his keyboard. He has to take his MacBook to some mom and pop shop, and he forgets to pick it up, and then that comes back to haunt him in 5 years. We see pictures of him smoking a crack pipe in bed, cigarette hanging out of his mouth. It's going to be awesome. There he is. So, yeah, with the issue, I said something to Josh. An analogy I made, but not an analogy of someone who is born with a pre-existing condition, or I don't think a condition is pre-existing if you currently have health insurance, right? And this is where Roger and I may disagree. If you currently have health insurance and you develop a disease, let's say vasculitis, I personally don't believe your health insurance rates should go up at that point. It's the same as life insurance, the way I see it. It's like, well, I bought life insurance when I was 35 for, my family, and I died at 36. Does that mean it doesn't pay out as much? No. Yeah, I mean, you bought the policy based on the physical you had right then. The problem I had, and the reason I made this analogy to Josh, I said, I don't believe that someone should be able to buy fire insurance while their house is burning down. I know for a fact there are people out there who develop a condition, whether it's allergies or severe allergies or bronchitis or something brought on by their poor lifestyle habits, who don't have health insurance. Then they go out and try to buy it. And, that's just, in my opinion, that's the same as trying to buy, fire insurance on a burning house. It's the same thing. It's the same as if you are 75 and you want to go buy $1 million life insurance policy, man, good luck making those those premiums, because it's going to be high. Because like Roger said, it's a risk. It's a risk. Everything goes through their risk model, and they're gonna determine the cost on that. So that was my analogy, and Josh was like, "What about the kid born with spina bifida, you heartless bastard?" I was like, "God damn, whatever." All right, Josh. But so the ACB, Roger really did a good job kind of unpacking it. I thought there were a lot of campaign speeches up there because all these people are running for re-election that were grilling her. It fell right down party lines. I think it was Coons, might have been Coons at first, who was, it seemed like his line of questioning was reasonable, and then he just turned a corner and just went down the partisan path. If I was as smart, which I'm not even close, as any one of those Supreme Court justices, what the thrust of what I would try to explain to them in every single answer, and ACB did this on a few things, but she didn't do it with what I would try to argue is, not argue, but make my point clear, is like, look, you people really shouldn't care what my personal beliefs are, because that will absolutely not enter into the process. And if you think that my personal beliefs will, and you think that the other justices, whether they lean conservative, lean liberal, if you think that their personal beliefs enter into their judgments and their findings, then you put the wrong person on there, because you should be able to separate. The law is very clear. I realize there are some points where you chase the law all the way down the rabbit hole, and you might have to lean toward a new finding where you have to reach back into what you have learned and what shaped, how you learned it and how you view it epistemologically. And your personal beliefs might have some bearing on the decision. But because she's Catholic, I mean, it shouldn't have any bearing. And maybe that's what they're trying to determine is your Catholicism going to influence your decisions on the court? Well, the answer is no. And then I would explain why, because this is the process. When a case comes before the Supreme Court, we look at what the circuit said about it, so on and so forth, and just say, we apply the law. And the law is what you wrote and what the Constitution says. So I'm very, again, I've used this word a few times tonight in the freemium content before. I'm very concerned with how Catholics, I'm not Catholic, but how Catholics are really being vilified. Just really by the left, by the media. It's like, if you're a Catholic, that's already a strike against you. And man, I thought that on to, some of her testimony I haven't watched as much of it as Roger and Josh, but I was really impressed at her poise. And if I don't ever want to hear out of a Supreme Court justice or a potential Supreme Court justice that my experiences in life will make me a better justice, as Sonia Sotomayor said. As a Hispanic female, I believe that brings me better clarity. I can't remember her exact quote, but it's like, that should have nothing to do with, if anything, if I'm objective and I hear a potential Supreme Court justice, that's a disqualifier for me, because I don't care about your background. I really don't. I care about your education. I care about how much time you served on the federal court, which she doesn't have that much time. And no one asked her that, to my knowledge. No one said, I see you only have a couple of years at the federal circuit there. You care to explain how just those couple of years will translate to the Supreme Court, And no one asked her that. But that's a legitimate question. You're interviewing for the Supreme Court. Are you qualified or not? I don't know. It went down party lines. It's very polarizing. I get it. But the president is the president for 4 years. And I think it was Mitch McConnell said, you're going to regret your decision. I think that was 2013. He said, you're going to regret this, and sooner than later. And 7 years later, that was probably sooner than they'd hoped that they'd regret their decision, that vote back then. But man, he was 100% right. But man, I don't have a problem. I would hope, and I think I said this to Roger last night, try to be objective in my life. And I would hope that if the situation was reversed, it was a Merrick Garland type situation, and he presented himself the same way ACB is presenting herself, I would hope that I'd be like, you know what? I don't have a problem with this person being on the court. I would hope that I would think that. I just don't see how she's not qualified. Josh?
Yeah, no, she's absolutely more than qualified. A bunch of people came out and they said, well, she's only got 3 years as a judge, therefore she's not qualified for the highest court in the land. And my response to them on, whatever social media I was on it, Elena Kagan would like a word with you. Elena Kagan never served one day as a judge prior to her appointment by Obama to the Supreme Court of the United States. So that settles that. So we, again, I was driving back from Kentucky, listening to the hearings, and like you guys, I don't recall anybody in front of anybody of Congress or any committee that had that much poise and that level of knowledge. And not only the level of knowledge, but being able to break it down to where even people like me of a very low IQ can understand it. Right? She talked about a lot of complicated things that she was able to break down Barney style, crayons and coloring book, and I completely understand it. So that in itself was amazing. And you couple the fact that, again, I'm like you, Luke. All I want out of my Supreme Court justices is interpret the Constitution and interpret the law. I don't care about your personal feelings. I don't care about your background. Right, because the law is the law, the Constitution is the Constitution, and Sculley said, the Constitution says what it says, and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. Josh 3:16, and so when you boil it down, I would have probably done the same thing with Merrick Garland. I probably wouldn't have liked it, but as long as Garland was like, you know what, hey, I interpret the Constitution, I look at the Constitution, I will interpret the law without my personal feelings involved, and answered like ACB did, absolutely, like okay. I would have been like, okay, I probably don't mind this guy being on the Supreme Court. As far as the whole process, and I think we already talked about it, whether, she should have been confirmed in an election year, shouldn't be confirmed. And granted, I'm, assuming that she's going to be confirmed. I'm good with it. And because of what I've seen over the last 4 years from the left, and I used to be a reach across the aisle guy. I used to be we need to bring everything back to the middle. I don't know that I'm that way anymore. I really don't. And I know I said earlier that I would put people on trains. No, I'm not putting anybody on a train. All right.
Yet.
So everybody calm down. But but I don't know. I'm serious. Like I've seen what the left has done. I've seen what they've been allowed to do and allowed to get away with and not been called to task for it. And I'm telling you, there is a lot of people out there. I have talked to probably a dozen or so of my friends who have said, man, I used to be really agnostic about this stuff. I used to just be Switzerland and all this, but I'm done with the left. Like, I am done with Democrats. I am done with the leftists. I don't want to call them liberals because they're not liberals. They're leftists. And so they are, I want to say, you can say radicalized, you can say whatever, man, but they are pushing people further to the right. The very people that they complain about, they are creating them. They are absolutely creating them. It's like Cali at My Lai. Man, you took a village that, may have not given a shit about anything. And you went in, you just started slaughtering people. And now guess what, man? Everybody who was Switzerland in that now hates your ass. That's what's happening. And the ACB thing, it was very partisan, very down the lines. They didn't attack ACB like they did Kavanaugh or Gorsuch. They knew they're too close to an election. She's a woman, right? You can't come out and start beating up a woman, right? Because that's a bad look unless you're Chris Brown or Ike Turner. And you can't, there was nothing they couldn't attack her on her record, right? And when Cory Booker asked her if she condemned white supremacy, I almost opened up the door on the car I was in and just jumped out into the guardrail. It was the dumbest shit I've ever heard. It's like, Cory, she adopted kids from Haiti, man. Like, are you serious? You're going to ask this lady if she condemned? You know what? Again, I would like to know, hey, why do you think you should be nominated to the Supreme Court? Why do you think you should sit on the Supreme Court? Why do you think you're qualified? Why do you think you're qualified to, go sit where, the greats of Anton Scalia sat, right? Those are valid questions, not, well, do you condemn white supremacy? Really? But Cory Booker's stupid. He's stupider than I am. So I get it, Cory.
Ibram X. Kendi, the father of critical race theory, one of the fathers, he accused her of being racist for adopting two Haitian children. So I thought that was real interesting. Those are the types of people we're dealing with. Thank you, President Trump, for trying to get rid of that training for federal employees. Real quick, before I kick it to Roger, I want to say a couple of things. Our boy Scott started on September 30th at 330 pounds. Dude has already lost 14 pounds. And I was like, dude, how did you do it? He just sent me the message. Like, how'd you do it? And he goes, I just stopped eating. I stopped eating as much. I just backed away from the table. So good for him.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I'm going to have to send him some swag, hopefully, Kurt Schlichter came on. Shout out to him. Thanks for coming on, Kurt. We know you're listening, faithful listener, and hopefully he'll be getting his swag pretty soon. Check out Roger on Twitter. He's at Jax. That's Juliet Alpha X-ray November DUH box Jackson to box. And check out Josh Army of Juliet, and of course at Culper's Canteen. We want to start some discussions on there and get people going, man. Start influencing minds and hearts and things like that.
And elections.
And elections. That's right. Good points, Josh. I wanted to hit on a couple, but I'm going to kick it to, maybe we'll save that for next time and we can talk about term limits and stuff. And Josh wants to say one more thing.
Hey, I got one more real quick shout out to Dave and Leslie. Leslie's mom went to the hospital. I got a phone call while I was on the way home. Leslie's mom went to the hospital with stroke-like symptoms. So just want to let you know, Leslie, out in Texas, we're praying for you. We're praying for your mom, and hoping she makes a speedy recovery. Now I'll throw that over to Roger. Thanks.
All right, Canteeners. Well, that wraps up another episode. Thanks for listening to us. As always, thanks to Carlton Zeus. www.carltonzeus.com, or check them out on Apple Music. I would encourage you, I highly, highly, highly encourage you, go check us out on YouTube. Go check us out on Twitter. Some of the stuff we say is funny. Some of it's not. But those that are YouTube freemium content providers, or I guess watchers, your freemium content starts now.
Twitter just came back up.
Man, we didn't even get to term limits.
I tried.
No,
you shut it down.
Skip over 2:30 and go to term limits.
No, I was term limits, brother.
You're wrong.
We were starting.
I know, but that wasn't the plan. The plan, Luke's outline said 2:30, then term limits. Luke doesn't read Luke's outline.
Dude, you got a whole page of notes there. Check this out. So
yeah, you got
Schlichter just joined something called Clout Hub. I may have to check that out tomorrow.
Dude, hold your nose up.
What's up? Am I doing cocaine?
No, I was telling Roger to hold his notes up.
I thought you were saying hold my nose up. I was like, oh, my
no. So this thing's going to go in the Library of Congress one day. So I actually have I got a sketchbook, and I keep all my notes from all the episodes in the sketchbook.
This is a combination of the episodes and writing. I got the kind of the same thing. It's going to be valuable someday.
Notes for an episode because we decided we're recording, an hour before.
Whatever. You know what? And the thing about the sketchbook, and this goes on to another story, but I was telling my kids, like, it is hard because I like notebooks without ruled pages. I don't like the lines because I don't like staying within the lines, right? But they are conditioning people at a young age. Go look for a notebook without lines. You can't find them unless it's a sketchbook. And then my wife,
sketchbook,
right? My wife, my daughter, like, Dad, you're full of shit. Black helicopters, this and that. So we went to like 5 different stores. Okay, you got the Cornell note style, you got the regular ruled style, you got the dotted style, right? All that stuff.
College rule.
Like, wow. I'm telling you, because they were trying to condition you at a young age to follow the rules, stay within the lines. This is what you're supposed to write. This is how you write it. Here's how you like. I like the white blank page because that way I can write whatever the fuck I want to write. How big, how small, draw lines or whatever. I'm telling you, man, that's why they do it.
To condition people?
Condition people. Absolutely. It's got nothing to do with being able to write straight or keep your lines. It's all conditioning.
For what? For what purpose?
To follow the rules. Stay within the lines.
Wear your mask, Luke.
Dude, we got to wear our masks outside now.
No, right?
Outside at all times. Outside. Yeah, they got stupid with it. It wasn't even like that before. It wasn't like that before. Now, mask outside all the time. What's funny is they came up with all the. I'll save that for later. We got a couple minutes.
Dude, Roger's correct, man. They're trying to do. They are absolutely trying to make you a rule follower, so you don't question anybody when they say get on the train car.
The government, what they're doing now.
The government, dude. Where you been since we've been talking about this?
So the government is colluding with these paper companies to make lines.
Yeah, because you know who's telling the paper company to do that? The education system.
Schools. Yeah. If you said schools, I'd be like,
right. No, the schools are doing that. You know why? Because that way, when you grow up, because now you respect the authority of educators. And that way, when you grow up and this educator, Dr. Fauci, says that you should wear a mask, fucking Luke is wearing a goddamn mask.
Well, I want that job then.
And I want that
job. I want the job where I'm the government guy who goes to a school and says, hey, man, you need to tell all your students to use lined paper.
Hey, here's what I know.
There's no one person that does that.
It doesn't have to be one person. Who said it was one
Department
person?
of Education.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be one person.
We can talk conspiracy theories again because I don't disagree with you guys, but it's more like there's no like coordinated conspiracy. It just is. That's just the way the government works. It doesn't have to be
coordinated.
That's a definition of a conspiracy.
You know,
I didn't say it was a conspiracy. I'm telling you truth.
Hey,
they do that shit to make you follow the rules.
Yeah, I agree.
The Belgians said the same thing about the Germans. The Belgians said the same thing about the Germans. The Germans aren't coming.
As long as you say black helicopters and I start thinking whatever.
Hey, hold on one second. Hold on. Freeze for a minute. All right. See, I'm working around that 2 hour
I'll
limit.
give you that.
It's not
it.
a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy like there's one person saying it, but I'm telling you collectively as a group from the DOE all the way down to my unified school district, that's what they do. Hey, because you know what? You're going to follow the lines. You're going to follow the rules. You're going to respect the authority of those that are educated, those educators, right? Those teachers. Now, when you grow up and you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and Dr. Fauci and Birx and all them tell you, well, you know what? You should be 6 feet apart. You shouldn't be 6 feet apart. You should wear a mask. You shouldn't wear a mask.
Those educators who were educated in colleges of liberal professors.
This is not a new thing, though. This is not a new thing. And if you think this is a new thing, I encourage you to go read the book of Deuteronomy in the Bible. I mean, it's, you know, whether you believe that's the word of God or not, those are a set of very strict rules so that people will follow them and be easier to manage as a nation. I mean, it goes back. This is not a new thing. Yeah, they're trying to get everybody to follow the rules.
The difference, though, is there's a difference when I come right out and I write 10 commandments, and those are your guidelines, as opposed to subliminally, like trying to condition you. It's like in our line of work, right? You condition folks.
It's the same, folks. I get it. I don't disagree with you, but there's more than the 10 commandments. Now we're getting into
overt versus covert is my point, right? There's one thing to say, hey, look, okay, but I'm your dad. You're going to do this versus, see, this is how you were to me yesterday. So shut the fuck up. I'm talking.
No, I know.
This is exactly how Luke was. He went off for like 4 minutes before I got my spiel out. But no, there's
all I got this morning. All I got this morning from Luke when I hopped, I hit him up on Hangout. I said something, I don't know what it was. I said something. Luke's like, man, I feel bad. I yelled at Roger last night. And so I was like, what did I miss?
But I was fine because we're fighting that. We're making the same argument. And it's really, we use the term publisher and regulation and deregulate and this and that, when in actuality, there should be a deregulation of Section 230. That's what it is.
Isn't there a town hall tonight?
There is 2 town halls. They're running.
What? It's at like 8:30, right? Or 8:30?
Well, they're doing the Biden and the Trump town hall at the same time. So NBC's covering Trump, and I think ABC's covering Biden.
Yeah, I wonder how many questions ABC is going to ask Biden about the Hunter's emails.
0, none. And I will tell you this. I will say this, and for the YouTube viewers out there, I bet, because I'm looking at which one I would watch. I agree with most of what Trump says, right? And I kind of know his stance. You know the one I want to watch? Fucking Biden, right? Biden should destroy him in the ratings.
So what do you think now? What do you think, Josh? Are you still doom and gloom or what about the election?
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I need to go back and I need to pull the website. But so he was a guy. He's been fairly accurate. He did predict a Hillary win, but he predicted a very marginal Hillary win in 2016. He's predicting a landslide for Biden. And not that I buy it, right? Because he's talking like 330 to like 206. And it was just like, no, I think it's too close to call right now. Honestly, I do. Right. I don't. My worry is you look at early voters. So I was watching some of the local news here in North Carolina today. So first day early voting, North Carolina, lines were 3 hours long, but these lines were in Raleigh, like inner city, in Charlotte, right? And generally speaking, most of those are Democratic voters, right? Now, are they all Democratic voters? No, that'd be silly to say. But I think we're going to have more voter turnout than we've ever had as a nation. I think we're going to have record voter turnout for this. You don't think so?
Nope.
I think it's good, man. I don't know. Right now, I think it's going to be close. But then on the other hand, I don't know. I don't know, because I don't see the enthusiasm for Biden, man. So we drove through Western Virginia. We drove through West Virginia, and then we drove through Kentucky, right, along the northern Kentucky, Louisville, Lexington. And, man, I counted 2 Biden signs, 2 Biden-Harris signs from North Carolina to Louisville, Kentucky. 2. No bumper stickers, no nothing. I can't tell you how many Trump signs and Trump flags on cars and Trump bumper stickers that I counted. I can tell you, they were too many. I don't see the enthusiasm that you saw for Hillary. I don't see it. But I will not underestimate the ability of the left to win the election.
To use Luke's term, cognitive dissonance, like if Trump loses, based on what you're saying with the enthusiasm and the signs and the 30,000 people, like I will probably need therapy. Like no shit, because when I sit here and I look, here's like Josh said, and I've driven through several states. When you look at these rallies, okay, now if Joe Biden had rallies and 4,000 or 5,000 people were showing up, okay, I get it. But dude, there are more people at like my daughter's elementary school play than go to fucking Biden's rallies. And Trump is throwing rallies with 25 and 30,000 people. And then you talk about the signs. I have seen literally 3 signs, and they were back to back to back throughout Arizona. And I drove all the way up to freaking Vegas. So when I look at that, I'm like, dude, there is no way Biden can win. Now, obviously, he'll win states, right? He's going to win California. He's going to win either Oregon. A handful of states he's going to win. But I will probably need therapy because it won't make any sense to me. Like, I won't understand that. I don't see it.
I heard a good one today, a good argument about, not argument, but a good stance that it's like people are really going to are really going to be thinking economy. If there are any on the fence sitters, they're going to be thinking economy, and they're going to be like, who's going to bring it back faster? And there's no question. So, maybe there's that. I don't know. To be close.
Well, and to Josh's point, and this does give me a little bit of worry, but there's obviously some more info behind it. But they were talking yesterday that with early mail-in voting, generally speaking, Republicans lead it in Florida. And right now, the Democrats are up like 308,000 ballots. Now, they don't know who they voted for. They just know the number of ballots that came in. But the flip side to that is, well, the left is so scared that most of those folks that are voting by mail-in would have voted in person anyway. So you're really not gaining any votes. And most of the Trump supporters are going to vote in person. Because even with us, we're choosing to vote in person this year. And I normally vote by mail. But we're going to vote in person. My family, for the first time, all of us are going to vote in person. And when you look at the ballots that are left outstanding, there are like 1.2 million Republican ballots out there. So like Josh said, I think it's a toss up, and it's if Biden were to win by a close margin, I could probably get on board with that. Like, okay, I can get that. But if it's like, and I've seen the same thing. I think it was Murdoch who said that Biden's going to win by a landslide, like 330 fucking electoral votes. I'm like, if that happens, I'm probably going to go to the VA and just go on some Valium for the next 4 years or something.
No, I do not see a landslide for Biden. Yeah, because that would indicate that there's enthusiasm out there, right? I predicted, as probably most people did in 2016, when I went to bed, I was like, when I wake up, Hillary Clinton's going to be elected president, and it's not even going to be close, right? I was certainly not alone in that. And you wake up the next morning, you're like, holy shit, like it wasn't close. It was for Trump. It's like, this is awesome. Right. But you saw that Hillary was drawing crowds. There was a lot of enthusiasm out there, right? Yep. Dude, Biden did you see the video of Biden walking in the warehouse, and there was like 10 people and only one of them's clapping?
Yeah.
And he's being prompted. Clap. Oh.
Jesus. I was just, I was like, clap for that, you stupid bastards.
And here is one thing, though. Here's one thing with Biden, and this was what I was worried about, and I think Trump's done a good job with this, is Hillary was very easy to hate. So much like Trump this time around, like people aren't voting for Biden, they're voting against Trump. And with Clinton, people just hated her, even on the left. One thing the Trump administration has done a very good job of over the last 2 months is Grandpa Joe doesn't look so much like Grandpa Joe anymore. I mean, you're starting to see a little bit more people are like, you know what, this guy's fucking sleazy and he's a little dirty, and he's becoming easier to dislike versus the old Grandpa Joe that, it's hard to hate Grandpa because, it's Grandpa.
Well, he's going to have problems. If he gets elected, he's going to have problems. These riots and stuff are not going to go away because I believe, I'm with you, Josh, what you were saying in the podcast about, it's accepted that politicians
lie. Well, I haven't even seen any of the riots lately. Like the coverage in the last couple of days,
they're
right?
still going on. But here's the thing. It's like, we all know. I mean, everybody knows that rich kids' parents hook them up and they get them jobs. We know what happened with Chelsea Clinton with her first job at the hedge fund. But when there's evidence of it and you're like caught red-handed, dude, the left, like the radical leftists, hate that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to know it's happening. Yeah, I know it's happening, but that's why I hate the Trumps and all this stuff. But this type of thing, this is going to come back to haunt him, man, big time.
Well, because you don't use it to influence foreign policy. Like when I make a call to say, hey, do you have an open position for my boy? He's a hard worker and he's going to bust his ass. Okay, that any parent would do. Generally speaking, that doesn't affect the foreign policy of the United States or the Ukraine or the annexation of Crimea or the expansion of Russia or any, the rest of that stuff. So there's a big difference there between doing what you can for your child versus just being illegal about it and then lying about it. I'm like, well, I had nothing to do with this. I knew nothing. I didn't speak to them. Well, that's funny because there's some notes here that says that your camp or your administration was briefed on it.
It's gonna be fun. 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
All right. So what time's the town hall? Well, you're probably going to bed, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to bed.
Yeah, Luke should be going to bed. I'm not. So we left Kentucky. So we did the tasting there at Bullet, and then on our way out, a guy had ordered ancient. Hey, at least it's ancient age, and
it's got a good dark color too.
Yeah, dude, ancient age is dude for the price. That's a solid bottle. I mean, your expectations at $12, probably not.
Hey, Josh, shut the fuck up! It's a $400 bottle of booze.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. So we were leaving. We had to drive past Frankfurt, and it was like, what time does Buffalo Trace open? It opens at 10. So we're like, all right, let's be there. So we hit the gift shop, grabbed another bottle of Weller SR and a EHT small batch. They had Blanton's out the day before, of course. So,
it's a shame that when you went to Bullet that they didn't take you to the old Stitzel Weller, because that place there, just the history, because like they still have John Fitzgerald's tax building like still sitting there. And when kind of like what's his face from Buffalo Trace, when we drove up there to do the tour, the guy, I mean, he had to be like 95 years old. And when we pulled up, we were like, hey, and he's like, hey, when you because if you want to know the real shit when you get done, come out here and talk to me. I was like, and he's like, yeah, it was like Julian Van Winkle's grandfather. He's like, yeah, he's the one that hired me. And I've been here ever since. I was like, holy fucking shit. The dude's older than dirt, but you go out there and you still see all the buildings. Everything's kept in place. It's pretty incredible, pretty wild. I'm surprised they were out of Blanton's though, because like the first time we went to Buffalo Trace, they had Blanton's out on the shelf open. And then this last time they had it behind the cashier cage. So you had to go back and ask, and then they scanned your license and you got one bottle every 3 months.
Yeah. So what they're doing now is they're only setting it out on certain days. It's still one Blanton's every 3 months. They scan your license, and it's one Weller SR every 3 months, and they scan your license. Right. And so they put out the day before, they put out Blanton's, Eagle Rare. They always have Buffalo Trace out, but it was Blanton's and Eagle Rare. And the day we were there, it was EHT small batch and Weller special reserve. And so I asked, I was like, do you, because I flat out asked them, I was like, hey, do you have anything behind the counter? And they were like, no. They're like, we don't keep anything behind the counter anymore. These are the days if, we match up Blanton's Eagle Rare or EHT small batch and Weller SR. That's how they're doing it. And then they might run EHT and Weller for 2-3 days in a row, 2 days in a row, and then they'll switch it, and then they might do that a day in a row, and then switch back, and then they just kind of mix it up. But yeah, they don't keep anything behind the counter.
Well,
anymore.
the lottery for Total Wine just opened up, so they've got all the they got it all, the entire Pappy's line. They got the entire BTAC. They've got Weller Foolproof, CYPB, 12-year, and then Blanton. So yeah. I'm in on it, man. Hopefully I get something. Hopefully I get something good.
I'm getting good at this Twitter thing. Some journalist from C-SPAN tweeted on October 9th. As anyone who watches at C-SPAN knows, at Steve Sculley is a fine and fair journalist, one of the very best. So I replied, as anyone who watches The Cosby Show knows, Bill Cosby is a fine and fair person, one of the very best. Reply. Oh, something went wrong. Let's give it another shot. God damn it. I guess Twitter's still down over here, or I've been blocked.
Probably.
Maybe.
Dude, that was a good one. Damn it.
Well, it's funny because even Chris Wallace put out a tweet. I support Steve Sculley. Like,
of course you do, because you're a liberal cuck.
It's like, do they truly believe? I mean, and even with the Steve Sculley thing, again, that's what kills me is I know if I sent a tweet or not. And if I didn't send the shit, I'm like, look, I'm coming. I didn't do it. I don't know what you're talking about. That ain't me. But like Josh said, when that other chick had to delete her Twitter account, you know why she deleted that shit? Oh, yeah. And they've already found a couple of tweets anyway that people have.
Well, you go back to Joy Reid, right? Joy Reid's like, oh, I didn't mean to post those homophobic tweets. I was hacked.
Yeah.
No, you weren't.
You get to use the hack excuse once. But Steve Sculley,
that's it.
He had hacks like 4 years apart. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. And especially now, like 2-factor authentication and this and that. Yeah, hacked. Like, so then they had to have your cell phone when they texted you the code to go.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, nobody hacked you, bro. Nobody hacked you.
Now, you YouTubers out there, you're getting something special here because normally we're cut off at the 2-hour mark. Now we're at like 2 hours and 17 minutes. So I have to see how our viewership either goes up or goes down. Because we might soon be at like the 30-second commercial, if the viewers go down. But anyway, to all you YouTube viewers out there, thanks for watching. Definitely continue to check us out. Hit that subscribe button. We also have the podcast. The podcast is obviously edited a little bit. So as people get back to work, because I think most of the government, the word on the street around here is in about the next 2 weeks, most of the government goes back full time, which is also proof that we are able and capable to operate the U.S. government on about 25% of its staff. So that should be a little hint on how to save some money from the budget. But thanks for watching, and keep your canteen cups tightly secured.